Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for Cloud Career and AWS Deep Dive. My name is Sithembiso, and I'm the AWS Cloud Club captain at the University of South Africa. We're really excited to have you here for an engaging practical session on cloud computing and building a career in this space. Over the next 2 hours, we're going to focus on cloud career path and what the employers are really looking for. We're going to focus on real-world AWS architecture and DevOps practices. We're going to get insights from industry professionals, so you can feel free to ask them relevant questions. Firstly, we have Sithembiso Mjoko, who is a DevOps engineer at Big Bad Solutions. He's focused on cloud infrastructure and automations. And next we have Kanyisile Nobula, who is a solutions architect and cloud support engineer at AWS. So she helps organizations design and optimize cloud solutions. We are also joined by one, if not two, UNISA professionals who are here to observe today, and we're really grateful to have their presence and support. They've also granted us an opportunity to use our UNISA venues for future events. So we're really excited and grateful for that opportunity. I'd like to give it to Shifra so that she can introduce the core team once again, because we've noticed quite a number of new faces recently.
Thank you so much, Previn, and welcome to all the new members and our previous members as well. So our core team consists of 6 members. We have the cloud captain, who is Previn, and then our technical lead is Gerdes, and then our IT support lead is Brian, who is also the founder and chairperson of the UNISA Developer Society. And then I am the social media lead for AWS Cloud Clubs UNISA, and then our management lead is Lesego, and our event management lead is Matome.
Thank you so much, Shifra. Without wasting any much more time, I'm going to give it to Sithembiso.
Hi guys, how are you? Am I audible? Nice.
Yes,
Thank you so much. So my name is Sithembiso, and I'm a cloud and DevOps engineer at Big Beautiful Solutions. I have over 7 years now working with AWS. I've spent my initial career at AWS working for a team called the Development Mobile Services. So basically the focus that I was doing in that team was focusing on messaging, serverless technology, artificial intelligence, and IoT. I've built like a lot of internal tools. I've mentored junior engineers, focused on a lot of deep dive production projects. But after I left AWS, I worked for the government of the Eastern Cape. Did a lot of digital transformation projects also in there, but right now, I work at Big Beautiful Solutions, where I'm responsible for the entire cloud footprint, which is solely on On AWS, so what I'm doing there, we are building an AI-powered software as a service platform that is available on AWS Marketplace. Worked with a lot of migration projects, on your monolith to serverless, to containers, to Fargate. So yeah, so basically, I'm gonna speak up today about the combination of AI, cloud, DevOps, and first principles more specifically. And I hope that everything is gonna tie very, very well into that. But yeah, before I speak about engineering or technology or AI or cloud, I want to speak about a concept of a tie, you know, like a tie, physical tie, the one that you wear on your neck, right? The tie was invented by a merchant called Jesse Langsdorff, and he presented like a new way that you can cut fabric in a way that if you can fold it and unfold it in those sections before like you stitch it, it will still be the same shape if you unfold it or fold it, right? But that single change meant a tie, it will always return to its original shape as long as you cut it in that pattern that was crafted by Jesse. So no matter how many times you knot it or you unknot it, the way you tie it, it will always go back to its original shape. So that was like the blueprint that was, sorry, that shaped how tie makers make ties today. And it's been over a century now, but that specification hasn't changed. The reason I'm telling you this is basically what this presentation that I'm gonna be giving you today is gonna be based on, right? Because right now I'm sure everyone is aware and knows, but I'd like to enlighten you that today we are living in the biggest change ever, like in software development generation. And most people, I think, because well, the concept beyond the hype of AI, people are asking like the wrong question. Because everyone is asking like, can AI like really write your code? But if anyone could ask themselves, if AI can write the code, well, it can, but what would happen if that code breaks? And surely like it will definitely break, right? But what would you do now if the code that you've tested like in your sandbox as a developer, then you push it into your development branch, you test it in your system integration environment, then you push it into your user acceptance testing environment, then you push it to prod. What would you do now if that code breaks in prod before it broke and passed all of those review and verification gates? What would you, as the engineer who was responsible for that code? And that is the gist basically of my talk today. From my experience, and I think from interactions with peers in the industry and researching, I think I've come to learn that the most valuable engineers like of today and the next decade, it's not going to be the engineers like who write like the most code. There are engineers like who are good at writing code. Well, I think the guys like who built these AI systems, like they write like good code. But I think the engineers that are going to be quite good in the future are the ones that will always like understand why do systems break and how would you put them back together if like they do break, you know. And for this talk, right, the specification for a great engineer, like I think it hasn't changed, but it's just that it looks different now since the arrival of AI, right? Okay, cool. So basically, this is my agenda for today. I want to speak about the evolution of AI, right? And I want to speak about my experience as a DevOps engineer and a cloud engineer. Then we're going to look at a few use cases, very common use cases of how to fix systems when they are broken. Well, or how to shift your mindset to look at how different systems are approached when you need to fix them. Then we're going to shape like our mindset now based on that. Hello? Is someone unmuted?
Big noodles if I'm hungry.
Okay. Okay, cool. So let's talk about what's actually happening in the industry, right? So at the reInvent, I attended the reInvent recap in Cape Town. There were different sections. But for last year's reInvent, I think the word AI, it appeared like in almost every session, every fireside conversation. To talk about Amazon Q, let's talk about Bedrock, Code Whisperer, Yokiro, and autonomous agents, right? And it's like the message from everyone like on the floor was the same. AI is just gonna be writing software. And I think for us as people like who are on the ground, and I think there are people who are still building their careers in cloud technology. There's different fields, of course, in the cloud. Here's the thing, I don't think they are wrong. AI is currently writing code and it's writing it faster than anyone, than any other human. And I think it is more consistent than any other junior developer because I think the employment scene in South Africa now, senior engineers rather spend money in paying like AWS Code, paying like those Max or Super Max and enterprise subscriptions, so that they can have like the best benefits of AI, right? But it doesn't do like the huge category of tasks that an engineer is supposed to do just because it's simply better. But it frames everything that is actually missed. So basically, when it comes to AI, right, and assisted development, there's two approaches into it, right? And there's different ways that I've come to learn and understand that how AI is adopted in different teams. And the first one is actually being fully autonomous, right? The developer, they describe the feature, then they allow AI to kind of build the entire feature, right? Then the developer is going to ship it. They no review, no understanding of the connections between the components, like of that particular feature, and they don't know like what's happening internally. And the nice thing is that it actually works. I've seen it. I've done it myself as well. And it works until it doesn't work, right? Then you'd find that there's a race condition because you don't even know the resources that it's deploying, the APIs that it's deploying. As long as it works, it always seems fine, right? And I've generated like a microservice using AI, worked perfectly in staging, worked just one day in production. And when it was deployed now, like under real load, then I started noticing that the requests, like there's at least one request every like 100 requests drops. But the downside of AI is that it can't debug like the production system on its own. And as a developer who wrote like that code blindsidedly, I couldn't even debug. And I think it goes for everyone else, like in the industry. You can't debug it if you don't know what you actually did or what the agent or whatever tool that you're using for assisted development. Then coming to the second approach now. The second approach basically is like an AI assisted full software development lifecycle, right? Where you use AI to assist you in development, right? And now you as a developer or as an engineer, you maintain like the full lifecycle. And the critical part here is actually writing the specifications. If you write a good spec, then you allow AI to implement it, and it implements it within those boundaries that you enforce, you review, and you verify every step that it does. You can own the output as well. So this is what is called spec-driven development. And tools like AWS Kiro, they are built like on this philosophy. And the more precise like your specification is, and the better like your agent actually performs. And the most critical part now is that the more you understand your system, the better your spec will be. Because the thing that this evolution into AI is doing is that the work is still yours, right? The work is still yours. It's not the AI's tools work. The work is still yours, but AI is like the power saw, you know? Then you are still the carpenter, but you can use AI as a tool in this instance, right? And so if AI is handling like the actual implementation like of systems, what does like the actual engineer do like in this instance? Like what is your responsibility? And I think for this conversation, I've identified 5 things based on my experience, based on our ways of work in my organization. So the first thing that well, I would like to impart, or if anyone can take away from this conversation, is that specification writing is the most important. And right at the beginning, it's the actual bottleneck. It's the one that can stop everything from happening. If the spec can't be described and the system can't be defined like precisely, then the agent that is gonna be building that, it's gonna do something that is very approximate to what you actually want, you know. And also, when you speak about architecture and system design, AI can never decide whether your workload needs to be deployed on an EC2. You can be fascinated about like deploying on ECS, deploying on AWS Lambda, or using like Fargate. Those are like fascinating services. But things like complexity, you need to think about complexity, you need to think about cost, you need to think about monitoring, you need to think about reporting, maintenance, auditing, about those things. Those are the things that AI can never decide for you, you know. And the review now and the verification. I'm not sure like how far everyone has worked with AI development tools, but these specifications, they are quite critical when it comes to that, the review and the verification. So if you build like let's say a component, right? Reading the code is very important than actually being the one that you write it. You have AI to write like a very nice code, but if you can't read it and understand how the code ties into each other, then that's a very poor system design, you know? And now you need to design like your workflow. How now you're going to connect all these microservices, all these components, and all these features. And it's always very important to make sure that the critical part of your application or the system that you are doing, you are able to build it, and at least bare minimum, you can fulfill that, you know? And for someone who has built like pipelines, right? The quality gates, they are very important, and what you define like as a standard, you know? What is the percentage of a pass that you'd like your system tests to kind of meet? AI can accept anything. It can do approximates for you, but it won't meet the standards of your stakeholders and the team that you are representing. And the most thing, having like a sense of agency when you are building using AI, you know. Because if you have a tool, it's very good like to treat like every obstacle like as a skill gap that needs to be covered and that needs to be fulfilled, right? So instead of being like someone who takes the tasks, you know, and who implements what is defined there, it's very good to be someone who owns like the outcome, you know, That is what is very important in this day and age, you know. So here's a scenario now that I want to build now, right? So we've built this system using AI. So fine, happy days, we celebrate. Now you've configured your CloudWatch alarms. Let's say you did or you did not, because you've built this with AI, you know. So now it's 11 p.m., right? But get a call that the API rate, the error rate is like above 5%. And you check your laptop, you check your services, they look fine. Then, okay, you check your DB, it also looks fine. Then you check like your load balancers, you check your VPCs. Then you actually find out that no, man, there's a misconfiguration, like maybe in a security group that was deployed by another team, and it clashed with what the AI agent that you guys are using has deployed, or it has used. You know, it overwrote like your configuration, because there are no proper guardrails onto how far like the AI agent can go, right? But now you are a developer. You are not like a DevOps engineer or a cloud engineer who will know like who has done what on the system. But since you are a backend developer, then who do you guess like who's the problem in this instance? So now this is like the identity crisis now when it comes to the evolution from DevOps, then comes AI, then there comes cloud, then there's a developer. Now we don't know whose role exactly like in this life cycle, right? So if I can speak about the word DevOps, right? It was like kind of meant to break down like the barriers between the development team and ops team, the operations team, right? But what it has created now, I think in many organizations, is that it's very ambiguous who owns what and who does what, because you find that there is a developer who knows AWS, then there is a cloud engineer who knows how to code, then there's a DevOps who knows how to code, who knows cloud, who knows everything else. But now when something breaks, like in production, then it sits like across like in these 4 domains, you know. Those are the things that need to be to be checked and to what actually happened across like your networking, infrastructure, security, and observability, right? I think in this day and age, while I was job hunting, before I moved to Big Beard, right? The most employable engineer, doesn't matter which kind of engineer you are, but just as an engineer, it's not usually someone who is a good like Python developer or someone who can write like proper Terraform, someone who can build like proper GitHub Actions pipelines. It's actually someone, you know, it's a super person, if I can say, that if something happens, right, there's an alert that comes in, the production system is down, or there's a certain feature that is not working. I'm someone who can hold all of these domains, you know, in their head or in their approach, and be able to work backwards now from the symptoms that they see, like from this section here, the observability, and they can work backwards to like networking, whether an issue arises from networking or infrastructure, or whether it's a security issue, right? Now, let me give you like maybe a few common examples, right? If you can have, let's say you have an application load balancer, right, on layer 7. It's misconfigured such that it drops traffic because there's an SSL certificate that expired. But if you think about it, let's say it should be auto-renewed, or maybe 30 days before it expires, it should fire a notification, right? Then that means your system doesn't have like proper health checks that are configured. Or if I can make, what's another example? maybe we can make an example on networking, right? Let's say your VPC network fails, right? And your Lambda function can't reach a database because there's an intern who deployed the Lambda function in a public subnet while the a database is sitting on a private subnet, you know, and so on and so on. There's so many cases that I can speak on about this, you know. And I think in each of these cases, the fix is actually, it's very short. It's very easier to fix something like this. And getting to the fix is where like experience and cross-domain knowledge, it actually separates good engineers and great engineers, actually, you know. And now, based on that, so I think I hope you get where I'm going with my conversation, because we started with AI, then we moved into DevOps and a bit of troubleshooting, but we are actually building a system in this conversation, you know, and I hope you can be able to follow along. So now, let's say you have this system that you want to build, and you need to choose how are you going to deploy the system, right? And the mindset that I want to share is you are using fully AI, and someone who actually has a systematic approach into building cloud services, you know. So I want to talk about serverless because that's an area that I'm quite passionate about, and that I've worked quite immensely on. I think serverless is quite fascinating for a lot of students and a lot of people who just broke into cloud technology, and they like it, but their expectation of it doesn't actually match like the production reality of serverless technology, right? And like the pitch, if you can pitch someone to say about serverless, they would be fascinated that it's actually like always the way to go when it comes to serverless. Because you speak about serverless technology, is that you don't manage any servers, it scales as much as you want, and you only pay for what you use. And for most workloads, you can use like your event-driven or your API like variable traffic in that. And it delivers like on those aspects, you know. But the thing with serverless that I want us to have in mind is that in as much as it removes servers, it actually doesn't remove like the complexity of how you actually implement the system if you were to choose the serverless route, you know. Let's speak about like an architecture, like an example architecture that that I've used we were working on a migration project. We had a multi-tenant server that hosted multiple websites. Then we wanted to move all of the landing pages into S3 to save costs and to have like high availability, right? So in this instance, right, remember these were like WordPress sites, right? So from WordPress straight into serverless, there's a big difference in terms of like your storage, your performance on that. The management is good. You can manage websites quite easily on WordPress because you have WP admin and all of that. But how would you manage them when it comes to like serverless architecture? And can you imagine how WordPress would run on a serverless approach? I think that's a thought like everyone can take, right? So we've built like this architecture like in the team. It's fully automated, serverless CI/CD pipeline, which is using 100% AWS services, right? So in this approach, right, you'd have like a developer, right, that pushes code into GitHub, then that would trigger your review and verify gates through like different environments, because we use a multi-environment approach, and it would build and deploy everything automatically into S3. Then from there now, the content would be distributed like globally through like CloudFront, where it has like edge nodes like across the world. And of course, the DNS is managed by Route 53. And everything, let's say I'm using like students in this example, like across the country, they can have like low latency access to this, let's say it's particular, let's say skills builder serverless website, right? And it looks beautiful, you know, and until it broke one day. It broke one day because of the DNS. The DNS component of it broke because the actual website itself, it was actually served from the previous server, and the previous service provider, because there's a component that we missed actually, which is how do we shift the DNS now to Route 53, you know? So what I want to speak about is, in as much as serverless would be an appealing approach, there's actually downsides to it. So I want to kind of build like a mindset of how like as of approach different scenarios, right? So as we're speaking as serverless as a very good idea, there's like one thing that vendors actually miss that they don't speak about when it comes to serverless, you know, and there's like real use cases where your serverless would be like a wrong choice. And the first one, you don't put a long running process or a compute heavy workload on serverless. And as much as you can max out your memory, you'll find that services like Lambda, they have a 15-minute like execution time limit. And if you say you are transcoding videos, or you think you want to train a model on SageMaker using serverless, that wouldn't be a good approach, you know? And you'd end up like fighting with the platform itself instead of building the actual product, you know? And for that, it's very easy. Choose Fargate, or you can use EC2. If you really want to use like serverless, then you could go the Fargate routes, you know. And number two, high throughput. I remember one time I was asked a question in an interview about high throughput. I couldn't grasp like how would I really solve this when it comes to serverless, right? And the actual answer was that just don't use serverless. That was like the simple answer, because it doesn't fulfill that specification, especially when it comes to like latency sensitive applications, because you'd have to deal like with cold starts. And if your application like it's needs like real time, let's say for bidding, your fraud detection, it wouldn't work. And when it comes to like stateful workflows, the memory is not persistent, you know, because it's ephemeral. Once the container where your Lambda function was executing on, it shuts down. That memory that was there, it's gone, you know. And when it comes to like state like workflow that needs to be always on, then serverless wouldn't kind of work for you. I think mostly Lambda in this case, it wouldn't be like a good use case, you know. Let's say you have like 50 million requests a month at a consistent volume, you wouldn't be able to do that. And also when it comes to like complex development, it wouldn't be a good choice, because let's say you want to run something locally, then you wouldn't be able to achieve that. You can't run like your Lambda function locally. Well, you can, but it's still like a tool that is maturing to kind of to achieve that. And the purpose of me raising this or this kind of topic is to kind of influence the mindset that the best engineers sometimes they are not like always loyal to a single paradigm, you know. You always want to pick like the right tool for the job, you know, and there's no shame into leaving like a vendor that you are familiar with and you're comfortable with. For instance, you'd find other organizations that use AWS heavily. They don't use code pipeline. They use GitHub Actions, you know. They don't use CloudFormation. They use Terraform, you know. And there's no shame in doing that, you know. There's really like no shame in doing that. But it's actually being able to choose like the right tool to fulfill the right job, you know, in the most effective way. Okay, cool. So now I'm boiling down now to the actual gist of our conversation, right? And this is the section that I'm most excited to share with you about because it is what actually separates like a textbook engineer from a production engineer. So
Sorry, Sithembiso. I'm not sure
yes.
if we should take a few questions before we go deeper into this.
Oh, okay, we can do that.
Guys, if there's any questions, please just unmute your mic.
Can you check if there are any questions on the chat section?
Okay, I'll do that. You go first, Sean.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. You said serverless is not to be used for work heavy loads. Would this be applicable also to Fargate, like when you're using ECS or EKS?
So remember the difference between Fargate and Lambda. Fargate is a serverless approach when it comes to containers. So you can run a container using Fargate, but you don't need it to run like all the time, like your traditional ECS. You can
Okay.
invoke it as you invoke a Lambda function.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay.
But it has like a long execution time than extra than Lambda itself.
Okay. Thank you.
There's no other question, guys. Sean, do you want to go again?
Sorry?
I saw Sean raising up his hand again.
Okay.
Mistake. Sorry.
Oh, it was a mistake. Okay. I think that's all for now.
Okay. Okay, no problem. So I'm gonna walk you through like 4 real production failure scenarios, right? And for each one, right? Well, I actually revealed the answers that okay, let's try this out, right? There was a moment I was going to attend an event for AWS, but there was a requirement actually where we're supposed to do like a hands-on lab for troubleshooting. And being someone who worked at AWS, I know how the console works and everything and most of the stuff. There are actual trivial problems that I couldn't solve like on the spot. But I know like what to do, but I couldn't do it at that time. I think that was 2-3 years back. And they sound common until like you encounter them like on a real production system, right? So let's say you have like a Lambda function, right? That is timing out. Not for every invocation, but for some invocations, it times out. And when you test the code on the console, it works, right? But if you test it, let's say with an event source, it fails. Then what would be like your kind of approach when it comes to solving that? Like where would you start? Because the first thing maybe someone would actually do, because there's no specification where the Lambda is executing. Is it in a VPC or is it what? Like, where would you check first? And I want you to hold on to that thought, right? Then let's say you have a scenario again, right? And you have an API gateway that is timing out, that is giving you like 502 errors, right? And also not every request, just maybe I would say 2% of the requests, they give you like a bad gateway. Or you have like your, what is this? What is the service? SQS, yes,
Sorry,
SQS.
can you please repeat the first question?
Sorry?
May you please go over the first question?
The Lambda question.
Yes.
Okay, so you have a Lambda function, right? It's intermittently time out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when you test it on the console, it works fine. But when you invoke it from an event source, it works intermittently. So that is the issue.
So it's failing in production.
Not in production per se. You can still test it, because remember, when we are talking about like deploying services, right? Let's say the microservice. I don't know like how other people do it, but let's say there's a feature in your legacy system, and in this feature, you are supposed to refactor it into like serverless, right? So you come up with an idea, then let's say your tech leads, they give you like a go ahead on that, that okay, you can actually go and implement this. And of course, the first thing that you have to do is to actually experiment on it, right? Experiment on it, let's say in your sandbox account sandbox, then you merge that into your dev environment, and it works, right? But you notice actually, let's say in a system integration, that no, man, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So you pick up issues like as you promote like that feature within like your environments. So that is the question. So yeah, I think I'm gonna run out of time. I think let me just breeze through this, because I think I only had an hour. So I think let me leave you on how you would go about that before before I give you an answer. Maybe I'll discuss with Previn on what like the team thought about that, So basically, like on those scenarios that I wanted to share with you, they have like something in common, and it's not actually about the technology behind it, but it's actually about the approach that one kind of takes when they approach different scenarios in different environments and even different technologies. I think the mindset of how someone fixes code and how someone fixes infrastructure or network or security, it's all about like the kind of mindset and the approach that they have, because people who know like how to debug, they don't just know like many tools. They have like their relationship they have with being uncertain. It's what differentiates them, and there are methods that we use to kind of get to the problem. And I think one thing I've learned, like as a cloud support engineer, I've realized that if you know what the problem is and you can actually define it, you've solved like 80% of the solution. Because if you have the tools and you know the tools, then you know how to fix that, So these are the steps that I would like everyone to kind of memorize. So best thing ever for any system is observability. If you don't have mechanisms and systems in place to tell you how your system is performing, you'd be firing a gun like in a dark room. You don't know the targets, you are just shooting, you know? And before you change anything like in your system, you know, you need to gather that data, like your rate logs, your metrics, traces, and the biggest mistake like people do is always skipping this step. What is happening in the system? Why are some users able to log in and others are not able to log in? Before you open the security groups to the world, you need to identify actually what is it that happened, you know? And then the next step is, of course, you need to form a hypothesis, you know? So forming that hypothesis now, you kind of formulate in your mind what could go wrong. How does a certain system or a certain component actually function? Then now you go back to isolating its part. Was it the infrastructure? Is it the networking? Is it security? Is it the actual code that does this? And you can test like each component, you know, and start testing now where you can be able to prove your hypothesis, you know. Then instead of fixing now the access issue, you fix what actually caused the error, than just fixing the symptoms or just giving like permissions to a role like admin access, because you couldn't pinpoint what is the actual API call that is failing, and what is the relationship between that API call and the actual system or resource that is being accessed, you know. Okay, cool. And before like nearing my close now, I spoke about AI, I've spoke about DevOps, I spoke about infrastructure, I spoke about troubleshooting and like the kind of mindset that a good engineer like would kind of have, you know. And I want to be clear about my view on AI, because I think there are two wrong things that my observability on it, and I think one right thing. When I was at the airport, I was speaking with Previn earlier, that I was actually traveling today to Cape Town. And while I was in Cape Town, what was mostly on the news, like on the screens there, it was speaking about AI mostly, you know. And I think the wrong position that people have is that AI is going to replace engineers. That would never happen, like never, because AI is just a tool. And it's very powerful. It's a very powerful tool. But the thing about it is that it doesn't understand like distributed systems. Maybe yet, I don't know, but it doesn't, you know, and it doesn't reason like about production, and it can never feel the pressure that an actual engineer feels when production systems are down, you know. And when users are actually affected, there's a DevOps agent that was released by AWS. It's really interesting too, but I'm still experimenting on it. But I think that's my take that one people are wrong about. And AI is, you can say it's a hype, but if you think AI is just hype and you're going to ignore it, that would be like your career suicide. And I think it's engineers like who have mastered AI assisted using agents to develop like systems. They are more productive, because if you think you let the AI wave miss you, you'll be killing your career by doing that, you know. And there's a gap that grows between like people who use AI and people who don't use it, you know. And right now we have producers who produce music using AI, and like that kind of music, it's playing on radio right now. So if you can't find like a gap where you can use AI, really like you'd miss out. And I think it's about positioning yourself and your career like perfectly, and use it to accelerate your career, because it's a software engineering tool, and it makes deep systems more valuable, and it can give you very good understanding of what you are actually working on. And here's why. Good at like generating the code, summarizing like your logs, suggesting root cause patterns, and writing tests, like documentation is very good. And it's actually faster. It's actually faster than anyone like in analyzing that. But it can never know if you are not there. It can never know like why your Lambda function is timing out due to a misconfiguration last Tuesday. So it's more like you putting your brain into it rather than it feeding you, and all of that, it needs like to be given context, cross-domain knowledge, and good judgment. And those are like human characteristics. And as I'm about to close now, and the guys like who are gonna dominate are the guys who are gonna use AI for like all of this low value work, like log analysis, report writing, feature testing using AI. It saves like a lot of time to do that with AI and focusing on building like systems, And I'm not sure who has used like GitHub Copilot or ChatGPT to write code. And after
50% of the people who are here, honestly.
Yeah, but now, how many of us now who can say they can be able to debug that code that was written by that AI? Because you can ask AI to write like a simple line of code, it will write 55. And you're like, Iban, what's happening? But you just asked it to write like a very small component, and you even wouldn't know, and you'd even ask it, where is this breakpoint? Because we don't understand that. And as I'm about to close now, I'm just gonna bring this back to the concept like of the tie, that the guy like who invented like the pattern on how a tie can be cut, that if you tie it in one way, you can use it to tow your car, whatever. If you unfold that tie, it's still gonna be the same shape. If you cut all of those stitches in it, it's when you fold it back again, it's gonna be the same shape. It's not be straight or whatsoever. And it just didn't change like how things looked, but it was just a fundamental specification that was defined, and that's what I'm kind of asking from everyone who has participated in this session, that the outlook of engineering, software, cloud, whatever, it's changing, and the tools are transforming. AI is writing codes that would take like teams a week to write, and it's gonna keep accelerating. But the specifications like of a good engineer, they would never change. Like in understanding like why systems break, and how to fix them, and the good deep understanding of a system, and how to give it better judgment, and like owning those outcomes. AI would never do that. So that's like my call to everyone. And if I can ask just everyone, if you are developing from now on, use specification driven development. Before you write any single line of code, write that specification. Describe the system you're building as much as you can, such that if someone could read that spec documentation, they would understand that and be able to implement it without even coming back to you, and set up like a simple CI/CD pipeline that when you update your code, GitHub, push it on GitHub. It follows that pipeline, S3, CloudFront, Road 53, and it reaches like their audience, you know. And before like your environment fails, just think about it before you go to Google, debug it, observe, form that hypothesis, isolate components, and validate by testing like different units. Then practice that kind of framework, you know, because it's people like who build systems and know how to fix them that really stand out, not someone who has like many certificates. And like I think that's who the future belongs to when it comes to the cloud tech space. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. I will take questions if anyone has any questions, or I'll hand over to Praveen again.
Yes, Matume.
I wanted to ask about the answer to your question. Can you just, because it's in the back of my head now.
No, go test it first. Maybe you can test it, then we can discuss about it. My name is Sithembiso Mjoko on LinkedIn, then we can talk about it.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Dumelo.
Hi, Sithembiso. Hope you are. I just
I'm
wanted
good,
to
and how are
find
you?
out. I'm good. I'm good. I just wanted to find out, since there's massive investment in the cloud infrastructure by big tech companies, they're investing billions in Africa and so forth. But then you find opportunities are quite limited for junior or entry cloud engineering roles. How can one become then a cloud engineer if they have no experience as a cloud engineer?
So there's a lot of free initiatives that are available out there, you know, and it's always about building something. If you can build something, like have a GitHub repo for all of your projects, well documented, well-defined specifications, that is like speaks volumes. It's on its own, you know. And what you'd find is that people who'd be interested in talking to you now, they'll speak about what you have done. And there's no way you can say you've done something and you can't follow up on it. That's what is happening right now. Because you can send a CV elsewhere, you don't even get a response because there's really no one who has time. And even these automated systems, they're not really interested in paperwork. They just want someone who has hands-on experience. And right now, I think it's a good time to start doing that. I hope that answers your question. Anyone else? I don't want to eat on Kanye's time. I think we can speak on the chat. I'll monitor the chat, then we can engage there.
There's one more question.
Okay.
Having the previous person said their question, I just wanted to know, will engineers need to become more like data scientists, or will traditional engineering fundamentals remain central?
The fundamentals remain the same. I think it depends which the stream that someone wants to take. You can't be an entire IT department as one person. I think you'd be killing yourself. You know, if you can't know data science, data engineering, you want to be a DevOps at the same time, you want to be a cloud engineer, you want to be a developer, you'd always be learning. You wouldn't master like anything. You know, like for myself, for instance, I want to master serverless. That's what I want to do.
Okay.
You know, if I can master that, then I would know that this is an offering that I would give to organizations.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. I will share the slides with Previn, and he can distribute them to you.
Thank you so much for taking your time to share your insight with us, Sithembiso. We really appreciate your perspective on how DevOps is evolving with AI. It was really helpful. And in terms of the slides, guys, I will share the slides in the WhatsApp group. The link is there on the chats. Let's give time to Kanyisile now. If there's any questions, please put them in the comment section for Sithembiso. I think he'll be here until the end of the session.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I'll be here until the end of the session.
Sithembiso, my brother, how are you? It's been a
Hey,
minute.
I'm good, man. How are you?
It's been a minute, my brother. I was so happy to find out that you are also taking part on this.
Yeah.
So great to see you. Let me quickly share. Let me put on my camera just for a second. Hi, everyone. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Kanyisile Nobula, and I am a public sector solutions architect at Amazon Web Services. I have been working at Amazon for the past 10 years, I could say. Sithembiso and I have quite a history. This is he's my brother, and we have been working together at his time at AWS. So I'm so happy to see him after a long time, and I'm happy to be here. So my conversation today would be a bit different from the conversation that Sithembiso gave us. So I'll be talking around role-based certifications, as well as emerging technologies and the careers that come with it. So when I was in school a long time ago, cloud computing was a very small concept. It was 3 pages at the end of the textbook. It was not something that we were focused on at the time. So it just shows how technology shifts and how we also had to shift with the time. And I think around 2014 globally, that's when cloud computing started gaining traction, and people started understanding, oh, we can actually run services on the cloud. Now what we're faced with is that we are starting to see some career paths that are coming with artificial intelligence. If you actually look for jobs right now, you'd actually see that there are jobs that were not there maybe when you were in high school, or maybe you were in first year, that are now here, like your AI engineers, for example. Maybe yes, they were there, but it was quite small, right? So we have your Gen AI engineers now. So the conversation, please stop me at any time if you have questions, will be around the services or the certifications that AWS has, and how you can actually map those to the career that you want to lead, or that you're currently doing right now. As Sithembiso said, you cannot be an entire IT department. There's different things that even in school you're specializing in. So based on that, you can actually cherry pick certifications that actually speak to your career path. For example, if you're a data scientist, then you can choose certifications that follow that path. If you're more on the infrastructure DevOps, then you can choose certifications that are on the DevOps side. So you don't necessarily need to do each and every certification that is available out there. And another thing, you'd find that it's not important for you to have 12, 13, 14 certifications from AWS, but what is important is that, do you know what you know, right? And you need to understand, okay, is that this is what I'm focused on, and this is what I want to learn. If I want to focus on data engineering, then these are the certifications that I will focus on and I will master. So yeah, I'm gonna turn off my camera, and then we're gonna start with some of the topics that I have today. So what I'll be talking about are, of course, the emerging careers that we have when it comes to when it comes to AI and ML. I'll also be talking about the different certifications when it comes to roles, and we'll be talking about what we have currently when it comes to the AI and ML suite. So just to jump now, and this is something that we see everywhere, right? When people are saying that AI is going to take our jobs, and organizations are not going to, there's not going to be a need for people, and it's going to take our jobs. That is not true, right? So engineers, software developers are still important when it comes to technology. And when it comes to, so I'll speak when I'll talk about cloud, because that's where I have a background. And so when I started as a cloud support engineer, I had a background when it comes to ISP and networking. And based on the background that I had there from a traditional IT or data center space, I was now able to comprehend and understand how the cloud would look like when I eventually joined AWS. And what actually helps you is that you should be able to understand the basic fundamentals, things like your networking, things how your databases actually work, your systems, your infrastructure. So if we take a look at how that would look like when it comes to AWS certifications, there's a certificate called AWS Cloud Practitioner. So this certificate actually makes you understand the fundamentals when it comes to cloud technologies, your basic cloud terminologies, how you can understand your cloud journey as an individual. So look at this as your basic type of certification that can actually teach you about the cloud. But so many people make the mistake of just going into these available platforms like your exam topics or Udemy and getting dumps and just going to write certifications. You can go and attain that certification, but that does not necessarily mean that you actually understand what is going on there. The best way for you to be able to understand that, okay, I know this information or understand cloud concepts, is if you go and you start working on labs. And how you can do that is there's a platform that is currently available. I don't know if any of us have used AWS Skills Builder. So this is a free platform that is available that you can run labs, and you are able to understand your basic cloud fundamentals. And it also has some material when it comes to the AWS Cloud Practitioner certification. Another thing is that AWS comes with a free tier account. So when you create an account, you are able to use some of the services for trial, for testing purposes. So this can actually give you a hands-on understanding or hands-on knowledge on how to use the different AWS services. Of course, once you go through the material when it comes to AWS Cloud Practitioner, right, you will be able to understand things like the cloud FinOps, for example, and cloud operations. You cannot just go and deploy something on the cloud without understanding that, okay, I need to set alarms for this. I need to make sure that after I use the service, because remember the cloud, the selling point of the cloud is that the cloud is highly scalable, and its elasticity is one of the things that we use to describe the cloud. So that applies when you also leave services that are running and unattended. For example, if you have if you have a testing code that's running in a loop and you don't terminate it, then that will result in a huge bill, for an example. So once you understand the workings and the fundamentals of the cloud itself, now you are able to take that knowledge that you have attained from the cloud practitioner certification and actually applying it now by doing labs. So what was happening 10 or 7 years back is that the market when it came to cloud engineering and cloud skills was not saturated as it is today. And I think someone mentioned that now that there's these emerging AI technologies that are able to also write code as well, like Claude, for example, it's quite difficult for students and interns to find junior jobs, and because of that. Once you understand that you are living in this world, you need to be able to know how to set yourself as a differentiator when it comes to this. Sithembiso mentioned that you have to publish some of your projects online and have your Git repository that you have available. You post it on LinkedIn, someone will ask you about your work and what you're currently doing. If you are looking for a job, for an example, you are able to go and say, hey, I've done project A, B, and C. So from my point of view, working as a public sector solutions architect. So as a public sector solutions architect, I work with government entities. I'm focused on the government vertical, which means I work with local and provincial municipalities, as well as NGOs and NPOs. And then in East and West Africa, I work with education customers. So what we've found there is that as much as there is a need for this emerging technology, we don't have enough skills for people to be able to now support these organizations that want to adapt AI or generative AI, for an example. And these things, unfortunately, are things that some of the organizations, if not most of them in Africa, they cannot afford to run these things on premises. For example, they don't have any GPUs. They have to now rely on cloud services, on the AWS Cloud, for example, to be able to run those services. So it's quite important for you to be able to understand the cloud fundamentals. And it doesn't matter what career path that you're taking, if the first certification that you will need to look at AWS would be your cloud practitioner certification. And if we now take a look at, move right along. So if we look how we as AWS or are driving this type of transformation when it comes to these emerging skills, right? How we're looking at it is that we want to upskill our customers, we want to upskill students, want to upskill everyone that is interested or is running their workloads on the AWS cloud, and make sure that they have the right skills. So what we've done is that we've introduced a number of AI and generative AI certifications where you can upskill and be able to support a business. And also another thing that's also happening is that in South Africa, there's also a lot of emerging new startups when it comes to these technologies. So for example, if you find yourself that you are not in a position right now, or you're struggling to get a job, I can tell you right now, when it comes to actually using these technologies, let's say, for example, you are already a developer or you are already a data scientist, and you want to now see how you can use these services that are available on the AWS cloud and build your own business from it, you can do that. And there's also some ways that you can actually get funding, a startup funding from AWS, or you can actually start and register yourself as a partner should you not get a job, because sometimes you'd find that a job is not coming right now and you can't just wait, right? Because the technology keeps on growing. But if you continue to upskill and make sure that maybe some of your projects you put them, and from a public sector perspective, they are always looking for new technologies and new ways, and empowering the youth on how they can use these technologies. So when it comes to there's key certifications when it comes to now the AI ML suite when it comes to AWS, and you have the AI practitioner certification. So this AI practitioner certification, you can say is similar to the cloud practitioner, but is more focused on AI. So what's nice about this certification is that it's not necessarily for someone who is deep into tech, but is also an introduction of the fundamentals when it comes to artificial intelligence. For example, even as a student, this certification is a great certification because it also makes you understand a bit of the ML ops, for an example. You get to understand a bit of your deep ML. You get to understand your traditional ML. You get to understand how generative AI and now agentic AI came into flow. So it actually gives you an introduction of all these concepts that are now being spoken about across these industries. And then you have your machine learning engineer associate certification. So this certification is when, for example, you're a cloud engineer. I think one of the questions that someone asked is that how does one become a cloud engineer? So the biggest thing that I hear a lot, even from working with other programs in Nigeria, is that when you become a cloud support engineer, you have to go and work for an AWS, for an example. There are actually some great companies that are using the AWS cloud. You just need to now go and do some research on some of those companies that are leveraging cloud, because you find that there are some opportunities when it comes to that. And how do you become a cloud support engineer? So you need to first make sure that, like, the organization that you are looking for an internship for is using cloud technologies, and that's how you can actually start exposing yourself to cloud. Another thing is that when you are applying for those jobs, or when you put yourself out there, you would have showcased a bit of some of the work that you have been doing with the cloud, for an example, by sharing your blogs. So that gives you exposure on how you can actually start a cloud support engineer role. AWS, year after year, due to the agreement that it has with the country, it always has some internships that are running. And for example, there's always every year a cloud associate intern role that is available at AWS. So that's something that you should keep an eye on when it comes to how you can apply for an entry level cloud engineer role. So when I started with the cloud, it was very easy for us first adopters to go find ourselves and work for these cloud companies. But now it's not longer the same. So the more projects that you do and that you test out and play around with, and another thing is that don't also limit yourself. Sithembiso mentioned it, to a cloud provider. And the reason I'm saying this is that over some time, once you play around with cloud, is that you will find that there are some things that other cloud providers are good at, and you can just also try and play around with that. Because when you want to be a cloud engineer, for example, you don't say that I want to be an AWS cloud engineer. You say that I want to be a cloud engineer, whether you're a AWS cloud engineer, whether you're a GCP or Google Cloud um, uh, cloud engineer, or you are an Azure cloud engineer. So, and all these concepts, when it comes to all these hyperscalers, are all similar. We just specialize in different things, and we have different services. So don't be afraid to try and play around with some things in other service providers. And you might find that there are some tools that you can apply. For example, if you're using Terraform in AWS, you are able to use it throughout other cloud providers. And most cloud organizations are also taking a multi-cloud approach. So you can have a favorite cloud and focus on AWS, but there's nothing wrong with you being curious about a small concept that is at a certain cloud provider, for an example. Another thing, when it comes to choosing the certifications, is that most of us who, for example, don't have a networking background always tend to neglect the networking certifications. And this is something that I always recommend, is that always looking into trying to understand how networking actually works in the cloud. And then once you start understanding networking, even at a high level and not necessarily in depth, because for example, you're not a network engineer, but just understanding how it actually works would, make you have less headaches. You'll also know how to troubleshoot. For example, there was an example that was given that if you find that you have an error 504, for example, where do you start? So if you don't understand the fundamentals, if you don't understand basic networking, if you don't understand how to actually do, for example, understand Wireshark logs, for example, how to analyze logs. Those things are also important, because when you're building on the cloud, whatever that you're building on the cloud, you need to understand, what will I do when it breaks? So also trying to understand those monitoring, trying to understand those log trail types of services can also be helpful. And I spoke about the AI practitioner, and how it's just an entry level when it comes to the AI certifications. So when it comes to the AI engineer, so this would be your machine learning engineer. This would be for your AI engineer. So this certification will focus on your ML engineer, ML ops engineer, and this would be looking at the whole pipeline when it comes to MLOps. So this would be a certification that you can take when you want to be a ML engineer or MLOps engineer. So as you can see, that there's also now these new career paths that are there that are related to this type of certification. That if you look now on LinkedIn, you won't be able to find yet, but in some regions they are available. And you also have, so when it comes to the AWS structure, it's always the fundamental, the intermediate, and the specialty or the pro certifications. So when it comes to now the machine learning, there's the machine learning specialty certification. So this is for your data scientists, individuals that now work with heavy ML and DL workloads. So this certification is for that audience. So if you're pursuing something like that, this is a certification that on AWS that you can look into. So what this will do is that it will be able to also prepare you or also guide you on the type of services that you'll be using based on your skill set. And so this is the related parts when it comes to the careers. Another interesting emerging career is prompt engineering, and you would think that, and this is something that's very important that we need to understand, is that you would think that because this technology is so new and everyone is talking about it, that what you need to do is you need to do difficult things. This tool is already a powerful tool. What's important is how you actually use it to, one, make your job easier, or two, try and create or bridge a gap somewhere. So prompt engineering was something that was not available a few years ago, but this is something now that is available. So when it comes to now, if you want to be a prompt engineer, you'll start with your cloud practitioner. As I said, cloud practitioner is something that's universal that you need to start with, whatever path that you choose, even with the parts that like your security, your cybersecurity type of certifications that are not here, you'd find that cloud practitioner is a certification that you would need to have. So when it comes to prompt engineering, so what prompt engineering does, it's some form of fine tuning or making a model to be domain specific. So what that means is that you are able to send prompts to that model to fine tune it in order for it to perform better. This is something that's mostly used when it comes to your RAG type of systems, for example. If you have a model for that, you'd use a whole lot of prompt engineering just to make sure that it gives the most accurate outputs as possible. And you get your machine learning type of your machine learning engineer. So as your machine learning engineer, your focus would be slightly different because you are now an engineer that also needs to focus on the fundamentals of the cloud, as well as the solution architect and how everything comes together. Because as the ML engineer, you need to understand the whole CI/CD pipeline, the whole ML ops pipeline, end to end. So which means that you also need to understand how to architect that, or what services that you need to have. And this is from networking up, right? From networking, infrastructure, application level. So you also need to understand how these services come together. And this would be from a solutions architect associate level. And then from there, you can move along to now your machine learning, and then over to your data engineer, because now you'll be working with data and schemas and databases. So also understanding the data pipeline as well is quite important. And then you can have the machine learning specialty certification for that as well. And for your machine learning ops engineers, it will be your cloud practitioner, AI practitioner, solutions architect, ML engineer, data engineer, and your DevOps engineer professional certification. And for your data science, so for your data scientists, so you'll have the first three certifications, MLOps, and then the machine learning certifications. There is some certifications that are not mentioned here, which have been recently dropped by AWS. So there's a generative AI certification. So when it comes to Gen AI, so we now move away from traditional AI ML, and we're talking about generative AI. We started seeing that even from there, there's now emerging type of career paths that are coming from there. Like now we have Gen AI engineers. So when you think of Gen AI, don't think at it from a now having to train a model or from an MLOps perspective, but think of it from an LLM, for a model that's already available. For example, like your Anthropic Claude Sonnet, for an example, where it has been trained widely with the internet's data and is able to generate content. So when it comes to generative AI, is that you take your data as a differentiator, and then you are able to generate new content based on that. So there's a concept that is known as grounding. So when you're grounding an LLM, so you can take a model like from Anthropic, Gemini, Amazon Nova. These models are all the same. We can pick them off from the shelf. But what makes the difference is the type of applications that we build based on our data. So the data that you have would be the grounding data, would be your differentiator. So when it comes to generative AI, that's where your focus is on, is having a trusted data source, or having a data source, or having a knowledge base. And then from this knowledge base, you are able to do different things. And from there comes generative AI agents, and then agentic AI. And then your agentic AI now is something that now we're widely using, where there's a service named Kira, for example, where you are able to vibe code. For someone who doesn't have a background in software development, I'm not a fan of vibe coding. And the reason for this is that I have a very strong sysadmin engineering background. So a lot of troubleshooting. And what I've found is that if you don't know what you're doing, you can easily find yourself just putting yourself in danger. For example, you can build a model that's not secure and put it online and put people's data. Just because you were able to give it as a proof of concept to someone and it works, and you think, okay, it's secure enough, I can put it out there. But if you understand the fundamentals, if you understand how a system should look like in terms of the security, in terms of high availability, in terms of all these different things, then you are able to, when you are coding, when you are vibe coding, when you are giving a description, you are able to be as detailed as possible, to be able to build a system that makes sense, rather than having to now build something because it works. Another thing is that a model won't say it doesn't know. I think this is something that we have all experienced when you go on ChatGPT, whatever you're using, Nova or Q, you go and you give it a prompt, and it starts hallucinating. It won't say to you, oh, I don't know. And then it's only when you correct it, then it says, oh, okay, my bad. I should be doing it like this. It's powerful in the manner that it will be able to produce the outcome. But the most important thing is that what you put in and what you understand, like you need to understand the makings of the system, you need to understand the behavior. So if you don't get how those things work, you find that you're just using you just vibe coding, and you might be building an application that is not compliant to so many things, and you find yourself in trouble. So before I go, I didn't have much prepared for today, but what I wanted to share is that when it comes to AWS certifications, there's certifications that are aligned with your career path, and you do not need to do all of those certifications. And when it comes to jobs, you are able to now see what's and also understand what's happening in the market. That's also another important thing. This will also help you to be able to take the right steps when it comes to looking for jobs, or when it comes to the skills that you actually need. For example, if you are looking for a cloud engineer role, or if you are looking for a prompt engineer role, you go on these career platforms or your LinkedIn's, and you check the job description. And then once you see the job description, that's when you start thinking, okay, I should go and polish on these skills, or I should make sure that I have A and B and C. So that will also be your differentiator. And last but not least, when it comes to AI, ML, I strongly encourage that if you don't have any access, for example, Kiro is starting to be available for students, but if you don't have access to an AWS account, or you feel like the credits that you have are not going to be sufficient, then you can now look into using your open source your lang graph, lang chain. So you can lean on those platforms to be able to now start polishing your skills. And how to become a solutions architect. Well, as a solutions architect, there's different types of solutions architects that are out there. There's application solutions architects, there's now AI, ML solutions architects. So when you want to be a solutions architect, it's just your industry experience. And then you take that industry experience and then you now apply it in architecting or building solutions for customers based on the experience that you have had for years. So becoming a solutions architect, you don't necessarily need to follow a certain path. You can have a background as a software engineer, as a DevOps engineer, as a system engineer. There's always a role that is aligned, or a type of solutions architect that is aligned. So there's a spectrum of types of solutions architects. So it's not just limited to an enterprise solutions architect. So us that work with the cloud, we're more, we're called cloud solutions architects because we're more cloud native. So over some time, you'll get to realize that there's different solutions architects, and based on your history, you can be a solutions architect. Thank you very much.
Sorry, if I may ask, I think I have a bit of a long question. If
Yes.
I am a junior developer, I'm holding the AWS Cloud Engineer Associate and the Solutions Architect Associate certificate. And given that the AI fundamentals are so important in this era, between going hard on the Solutions Architect professional or the AI practitioner fundamental, which certificate would you recommend? And given that the end goal is to be a cloud engineer?
Okay, so just correct me if I'm wrong. So you have, let's say you have your AI practitioner, or you have your ML engineer certification and your solutions architect professional.
No.
Right?
I have the cloud engineer associate and
Okay.
the solutions architect associate.
Okay. And you want to now become a cloud support engineer?
Yes, and I'm working as a junior software developer.
Okay, so now you want to pivot into the cloud engineering space.
Yes.
Okay, so another thing that we don't talk about is that there's also specialties when it comes to cloud engineering, right? So there's also a form of cloud engineering in the spectrum that focuses on software development or application development type of cloud engineer. For example, there was a profile, we called them profiles when we were still engineers with Sithembiso. So he was in a profile that was using the development type of services and some of the AI ML services, right? As much, and I was more on the infrastructure side, right, and then the compute side, and so, and more on the containerized environments. So what I'm trying to say is that depending on what you want to do, right, there is a type of cloud engineer that you can pivot to. So don't think of it as that you have to be a general cloud engineer. Some companies, when you check at the description, they'll give you and say, okay, we want you to be a cloud engineer, and these are the specifications that we want. We want you to be able to work with Elastic Beanstalk. We want you to be able to work with this. We want you to work with this. So it will give you the services that would align with someone that has your background. So if you now have a background in software engineering or as a dev, then it's going to be easier for you to look at roles that are specific to your developer type of services. So I'm not sure, Previn, that if that answers your question.
Yes, we've answered my question. I think it gave me a bit of idea in which direction I should head.
Yeah. So and another thing would be like there's your more of your DevOps type of your DevOps and data type of and data engineer type of certification, because you'd find that the services that that would gravitate easier on, right, would be those type of services, and it's going to be easier for you to transition into that. The other things when it comes to infrastructure, of course, you having the cloud engineer and the associate SA certification, that would have given you the understanding on the building blocks of how the infrastructure works when it comes to cloud. But when it comes to specializing in certain services, then you can just cherry pick the certifications that actually have those, and then when it comes to jobs, you focus on the jobs that have those skill sets, because there are some things that, like, even, and I work in government and government is so slow, there are some things that I can tell you now that won't really be a thing, but it's quite important if you're a software engineer to understand, that you are very much still important, because even with these tools, there are a lot of mainframes, even in financial institutions, banks, they have a lot of mainframes, and because they're using COBOL, they're not documented well, and they need to rebuild those things, refactor, and it needs people that understand code and know what they're doing for those systems to be transformed. So don't be misled by the whole thing of like their jobs. No, you'll find now with the whole migration of most organizations, and most organizations moving from mainframes, even your big banks, it's very much important that we have skilled people, and not just people who just know high level the cloud stuff or are able, but people who actually know how to develop, how to troubleshoot, how to do certain things, and also have are able to actually use these tools as well. You'd find in most organizations, from the government perspective, for example, a human in the loop concept is what they're trying to push. Is that whenever you have an AI system, you can't have it just running and there's no human validation or scoring of some sort. So it's quite, there's still a need for people. So it's quite important to understand, but you need to know now in the market what you can do, and even what you can use AI for to solve problems right now, because it can get you paid.
Thank you so much, Kanyisile. Guys, I'm not sure if there are any questions in the panel. Yes, Carol.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Thank you so much. Kanyisile, thank you so much, firstly, for this very, very insightful session. Thank you so much, Sithembiso, as well. I'm really, really invested and I'm enjoying it a lot. So I'm in marketing. I've been in marketing for the past 8 years, and I am currently a marketing manager in the tech space, a company that's reselling software solutions as well, and it's also an ICT consulting house. So, ever since I joined the space, I became really, really intrigued, and then I had an interest because obviously I've been analyzing data through campaign work almost throughout my experience. And I'm now leaning more towards the interest of data analytics and data analytics engineering rather. And I'm currently busy with my AWS Cloud Practitioner, which I think is a good base. And you've just confirmed it for me in this session. And then after I complete my cloud practitioner, I plan on mastering Excel, SQL, Power BI, Tableau, and Python. Is this the correct roadmap for me, considering where I'm trying to go? And also, I understand that, this pivot requires a lot of time and a lot of patience. So I obviously can imagine that pivoting completely into data analytics can take me up to 6 months, depending on my pace. So right now, after completing my AWS Cloud Practitioner, what roles can I then start applying to, given my background and this new certification? And if there are any additional certifications that can maybe add on to this to get me, into these kinds of roles while I complete my data analytics journey, what is the direction that you would recommend I take in this regard?
Okay. Thank you for the question, Pearl. Quite an interesting one. So currently, just to confirm, you are currently in digital marketing or in marketing currently, right?
100%.
Okay. So for now, right, and this is also being exposed to the pre-sales side of things. I think also another discussion that we don't normally have about tech is the how we can use tech in the non-technical way, or just understanding tech from a billing or from a consulting perspective. So what I can tell you now is that, like, from a consulting perspective, with the cloud practitioner certification, you can easily look into even selling technology, right? And being in a position where you are now, let's say, for a, let me just give an example, for we have something called AWS partners, right? So these are organizations that are part of the AWS partner network and are building their solutions on AWS for their customers. So when it comes to those partners, most of the time they would require some consultants when it comes to AWS. So they need someone that has a bit of understanding on what AWS is, um, what is cloud according to AWS, how can they use it from a value proposition type of approach. So when it comes to now having cloud practitioner, and given your history right now in digital marketing, I think, like, from looking into now a consultant or technical sales role. And the reason I'm saying is that this is that whenever you consult and you are in a technical sales role, it's easier for you to now be able to build that understanding when it comes to these technologies. So given your path and what you want to learn, for example, all these different database engines and Power BIs and all these different technologies, when you start now consulting and selling these solutions, you will find that these softwares that have been developed by these organizations, or consulting for them from an AWS perspective, that, hey, what is AWS and what services do they have, and just doing those type of introduction actually also helps you to be able to now solidify that double click on that information, or that the learnings that you'll be doing for your career path. So I would say, and this is something that's quite big as well, and people are doing a lot of consulting, and you don't, even if you push it as far as solutions architect associate, but having a cloud practitioner, AI practitioner, because now you need to group the two, right? Because you won't be talking about cloud alone. Someone will start asking you about the AI stuff, because everyone is talking about this technology and their grandma. So you have to now couple these things. So you have the practitioner and the AI practitioner. The cloud practitioner will touch on the AI services, but the AI practitioner will be able to now give you that understanding from a consulting perspective, even from a marketing perspective, to be able to understand. Let's say if you're working with a tech company as well and you're doing their marketing, you are able to draw a value proposition, and you are able to position the technology that they're selling, or you're able to position, AWS, while you're also learning at the same time.
100%. That is absolutely stunning. I don't want to keep holding everyone else back because we will run out of time. Can I connect with you on LinkedIn because I've got 2 additional questions?
Yes, I'll put my name there. I'll share my link actually.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Pearl. Junior, you can go next. I think Kelvin will be final.
Okay. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
I'm also good. I just wanted to say, I wanted to follow the cloud architect. I have just completed my BSc in computing, and I only have a certificate in cyber.
Okay.
In cybersecurity. Right now, I just made a booking for the cloud practitioner. I'm writing it next week. So wanted to ask, or must I still be busy doing certifications when I'm not working, or must I be applying for junior roles, or because it's hard finding work also, and also paying for the certifications? What can I be doing? Building projects? What can I be doing, maybe just to get something?
Okay, so you can start with building some projects. And when it comes to the certifications, I can understand it's quite difficult to get money for it because they're quite expensive. And another thing, so I work with interns around Eswatini as well. So what I normally scout for is the free cloud stuff, right? On LinkedIn, there's always some free promotion that AWS or a company is doing to have people go write certifications. So this is something that I will also maybe recommend that you keep an eye on. And TikTok now is also very active to, based on your For You page, it will just like have some stuff for people just telling you, hey, this hyperscaler or this cloud provider has released these type of certifications. So when it comes to now the jobs and the certifications that you have right now, you don't need to go the professional level. And here's why. That's it. The professional level certifications are expensive. And I would also recommend that you do them when you actually have the job, in a way, or once you are in an organization. The reason I'm saying this is that that's the only time you'll be able to apply the information or the new knowledge that you have acquired. If you just go and write a professional certification, that won't help you. You're just another person that has a certification. You also find yourself struggling in interviews. A recruiter will come, see that you have a professional certificate, come and interview you, but you don't understand basic cloud concepts. So what I would say is, do the cloud practitioner, look at the associate level certifications, hold back on the professional certifications until you find something, and then you feel like, okay, you can apply yourself, and you can now have a job, and you'll be able to pay for it, or the company is able to pay for it. But just going and doing a professional certification, it won't do you any justice. And that information that you'll have, you won't actually get to apply it as much as you would want to. And you'd find that by the time you get a job, the certification is expired, or you haven't practiced in a while. So keep it at associate level, and based on what you're interested in, rather, instead of you going vertical, just look at horizontal. Find another certificate that maybe if you're now a cybersecurity person, then you, because remember there's other specialty certifications that I didn't mention. There's database specialty certifications, there's networking, there's security specialty certifications. So rather, and also on an associate level. So rather do the cloud practitioner, if you're not, and then the AI practitioner I always recommend as well, because it's also in the same price range, given the how the technology is moving right now. Then your solutions architect associate, or you can park the cloud practitioner, do the solutions architect associate, then look for another associate certificate, that like your developer associate certificate, rather than just going profit, that now is more linked to where you want to go. Yeah, sorry, I thought that was a
Thanks,
lot, but yeah.
thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Junior. Kelvin, please let's take the last one. Oh, sorry, Lucia is going to be the last one.
Hi, Nobula. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelvin Gitonga. I'm from Kenya, and I would want some guidance on what I need to take next in my career. I've worked 2 years as a data analyst. Then I shifted to working as an operation manager, where I've been working for 6 years. I also have certification in AWS Cloud Practitioner and AWS Solution Architect Associate. So Nobula, you mentioned in East and West Africa, you are working with education organization. I'm curious to know if there are any opportunities that you could share to someone like me, or some organization where you could recommend someone like me to get started in a cloud position. I'm open to any position in cloud, so I'm not specific on a particular. Thank you.
No, hi Kevin, Calvin. Sorry, nice to meet you, my brother. Not a problem. I left my my LinkedIn handle on the chat. Like maybe we can chat some more. And then there are some few friends of mine that are that side, and like we have an office as well that side, so we can chat about it some more, like in Kenya, and then we can just have a chat.
That will be so helpful. I already sent you a connection on LinkedIn.
Okay, not a problem. And like I can also link you with a couple of friends that are you in Kenya right now?
Yeah, I'm based in Kenya. I'm in Nairobi.
Okay. No, there's a brother of mine, and Sithembiso knows him, that I'm gonna link you with. He's that side, so yeah, we'll talk.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Kelvin. Lucia, let's go for the last one.
Okay, hi Kanyisile. So I am a I have a cybersecurity certificate, high certificate, and I'm currently pursuing a degree in network and security plus. I have been trying to get internships, but it's not an easy route. It's not an easy one. So I was able to get into a virtual internship, the MWR internship online. It's a virtual internship, although it's not a paid one, but it's a learning one. And I'm looking forward to getting the certificate soon, after 3 months. So I have been, I want to ask which, because you talked about projects, like working on projects. I want to ask which projects I can work on to boost my certificates or get me out there, or let me say break into the cybersecurity industry, because it's not an easy one.
So I like your question, because there's someone that's currently pivoting, Lucia, and it's quite hard but very possible. And a thing that I always like to say is that nothing is directly proportional to time, and by this, I mean that you don't need a long time, nor a short time, in order for you to be able to break through or obtain something. So I understand that currently, okay, there's a certification that you currently part of a program, and then after the program, you need to now understand, okay, what are you able to do, or what type of projects that you're able to do in order for you to showcase your work. So what I recommend doing is, and this is something that I used to do, is that I would replicate or test out everything new that I've just learned. And this also helps me to know what has been taught or understand the concept better. So you, for example, um, we at AWS would also write documentation to solve problems for customers. And how you'd get to that is that you sit for days with the customer's problem, learn from it, and then go and write a blog about it. So you can take that approach, so that you go and you learn a concept from the organization or the institution, and then after you learn that concept, you go and apply it and you build something based on that. That will also make you understand what you have been taught, and it will also give you topics as you go. So when it comes to, like, for example, any program, let's say, it always builds up into something bigger. So let's say, like in cybersecurity, the first thing that they will introduce you is like your basic type of encryption types of, right? And you do a basic encryption. Then from there, you talk about different services or different technologies, like your identity access management type of technologies. Then you'll talk about things like your keys, single sign-on. Like, all these concepts are building up into a bigger picture, right? So each and every time you learn something new, you just go and you create a lab based on that. You go on your social platform, your LinkedIn, you publish, you write a small description that hey, this is what I've built, and this is what it does, and this is what I've learned. The next time you come across something, the next time they teach you something new, you append to it. By the time the program is done, you've also have learned so many concepts within that cybersecurity course, and you would have also showed some form of evidence as well. So when it comes to now how people hire, it's crazy now because everything is metric driven. Even when you write a CV now, it's not as simple as you need to show evidence that I've written this, and this is the amount of views that it has. So now you have what you have done and the metric or type of impact. So once you start doing taking that approach, you'll never run out of things to write about or to build about. And then once everything is said and done, the program is done, you have a finished product, and you would have learned so much, and you can just also take that project or those projects and put them on your CV. And another thing is that, like, that I like doing is whenever I learn something new, I go and find any information about it or who's talking about it, and then see, okay, what's going on there? Okay, this is what they're talking about, or this is the problem that we have right now. And then we need, this is the type of problem we have. Okay, this is how we can use this. For example, I have a background in infrastructure, in disaster recovery and file system type of stories. That's my background. So whenever you mention anything of like modernization, migration, I like looking at those topics because I have something to say and something to add to them, and I can actually share my expertise on how to solve them. So you'd find that after now you have written these blogs and now you're exposing yourself to those things, you are able now to also have um you know, some insights and have some feedback, and actually also propose solutions as well. And in this digital world, that gives you exposure. People start knowing you, and people in your aspiring field start, finding you to be a trusted source and an expert in your field as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Kanyisile, for the session and breaking down the AWS certifications and how relevant they are in the industry. Personally, you really helped me understand the different parts and where each certification fits in a real world. I appreciate the clarity you brought into everything, and you've made it easier for everyone to decide on what they should really tackle next. I wanted to announce our next event, but we've really not finalized things. We'll discuss anything further in the group, guys. And please remember to fill in the survey. I think I posted it in the comment section.